In my never-ending quest to become fluent in Japanese, I've seen my listening and reading skills improve every year, while my writing and speaking skills remain stagnant. I'd always been brainstorming ways to get over this plateau, but I'd never seriously put a plan into action until last year when I was listening to Trixie the Golden Witch interviewing Matt vs. Japan, a guy who successfully got to the level of fluency I hope to achieve. Matt vs. Japan is a huge proponent of sentence flashcards, and that seemed like it was the missing link in my own study of Japanese. If I wanted to get better at producing full sentences, I should try studying full sentences instead of individual vocabulary and grammar structures. I looked around and found an archive of some anime-based sentence flashcard decks, which included video clips from the anime built into the flashcards. I had no idea that was even possible in the Anki flashcard program, but it is, and it seemed like it would be really helpful. Choosing an anime deck to go with was a tough call. First and foremost, I wanted to pick an anime I liked, otherwise studying every line would be torture. I also wanted something relatively practical, something with standard accents and dialects, common vocab and phrases, that sort of thing. That meant I had to rule out genres like fantasy and sci-fi, and my best bet would be an anime in a normal high school setting. After much deliberation, I ended up going with Ore no Seishun no Rabukomi wa Machigateru, aka Oregairu, aka My Teen Rom-Com SNAFU, aka My Youth Romantic Comedy is Wrong as I Expected. I've talked about this one a bit over the past few years. While the story itself is good but not great, it has some of my favorite sentence level writing in all of anime, and if I'm going to memorize sentences, that would be ideal, wouldn't it? I downloaded the deck for Season 1 and set it up on my computer and my phone, and I started studying. In principle, I stand by my choice, but in practice, there was one major problem with this deck. For many of the episodes, the video clips were not properly synced up with the sentences written on the flashcards. I didn't realize this until the second episode, and by then I thought it was too late to turn back. Sometimes I talk about how I'm really bad at quitting, and this is a perfect example of why that's actually a really bad thing and not just humble bragging. I went with the default setting of 20 new lines per day, which meant that each episode took about 3 weeks to get through. I only used the good and easy buttons, which I thought would keep the pace relatively manageable. The show had its fair share of difficult lines for sure, like a lot of Hachiman's rants. Maybe I would have learned those lines more thoroughly if I'd used the hard or again buttons as intended, or maybe I avoided needless aggravation. I honestly don't know. I started around the end of last November, and I got through each line in the entire deck at least once by mid-July. In that time, I somehow managed to skip only one day of studying. That was near the beginning, and when I realized the repeat cards would keep piling up if I didn't complete them every day, I made sure to push through them no matter how busy I was. By the middle of the deck, I was studying 20 new cards and about 80 to 90 repeat cards every day. This took me about 2 hours a day, including short breaks, spacing out, and other forms of screwing around when I lost focus. I'm still studying the same deck, but now that there are no new cards, only repeats, and they're getting spaced out more and more, the daily burden is much lower. But the fatigue really caught up with me over the past few months. That's the main reason I would not do this again. If the goal is simply to memorize lines from the show, I think I could do that a lot more efficiently and with a lot less stress by simply watching the episodes over and over again. I'd recommend sentence flashcards for people with a lot of free time or people who have the focus and attention span to get through their daily cards reasonably quickly. But if you're a busy, burned out professional like me, then it's probably more effective and better for your mental health just to relax and watch more anime. When I first started the deck, I didn't rewatch full episodes alongside it because I thought it would be more motivational to rewatch the show only through the video clips in the cards. If I wanted to see what happened next, I would have to keep studying, right? Then I started rewatching full episodes because of the video syncing problems in the cards, and I quickly realized it was a lot more helpful that way. In addition to making up for the video syncing issues, watching the full episodes provides valuable context for the sentences. Sometimes a sentence doesn't make much sense unless you know what comes immediately before or after. Some longer sentences are split up between different cards. Some cards have multiple shorter sentences put together. It's not always clear who the speaker is for a given line just by reading it. Lots of little problems like these can pop up. If I had to do it all over again, I'd want to watch each of the episodes at least a few times before getting into the flashcards. The first time going through any given card is obviously the hardest and takes the most time. Having some familiarity with the lines going in could make things a lot easier. Overall, I have noticed a slight bump in my Japanese skills, but not as much as I'd hoped. I'd say that the most valuable benefit of studying the sentence cards is that they force me to pay attention to every part of the sentence. Usually when I'm watching anime, I don't need to do that because a few key words plus visual context is often enough to understand what's going on. Sentence cards force me to pay attention to the parts of the sentence I often subconsciously deprioritize or ignore entirely. When I watch anime going forward, my goal will be to pay attention to literally every word and hopefully pick up those parts of the language naturally without having to resort to flashcards again.